Arsenal held their nerve. If we rewind about 12 months ago, just under 12 months ago, FA Cup, Arsenal by far the better team, end up in a penalty shootout with Manchester United, and it's a disaster for them. Knocked out to a depleted Man United team, a broken Man United team, 10 men of Man United, and there was huge criticism for Arsenal. How did you not see them off? Tonight, for periods, gave me a similar vibe. Now, I think Crystal Palace are better than last season's Manchester United, but Arsenal had so many opportunities, so many chances. When Walter Benitez, and I want to mention this man's name, Walter Benitez, take a bow. The man prevented 3.11 XG tonight. XG on target faced was 3.11. And he made two or three wonderful saves. Arsenal, though, in this game, 25 shots, 70% of the ball. Conceded just 0.2 XG all night up until the Gahey goal. The only area of criticism for Arsenal were the Maduekes of this world, the Gabriel Jesuses. Even right at the end, the final kick of the ball, Declan Rice lifted over the goalie. He can't. And I don't want to take nothing away from Walter Benitez, but Arsenal should have killed the game off. Arsenal should have finished Palace because they were by far and away the superior team. By a country mile, Arsenal were the better team. But do you know what? Football doesn't work like that, and cup football takes no prisoners. And Palace just found themselves constantly in the game. Arsenal couldn't kill them off. And if you were to look at the statistics, if you were to watch the match highlights, if you did what I did and watched the entirety of the game, you're scratching your head. How are we in a penalty shootout? How are we as football fans in a penalty shootout when Arsenal battered them in the first half? Listen, let's have it right. I know he got an injury, which was unfortunate off of a foul. But that first half from Arsenal, Gabriel Martinelli down that left-hand side was majestic. Madueke was dangerous. 80%. I lied. 79% possession of the ball. The midfield, which was relatively makeshift from an Arsenal perspective, with Marino and Norgard dominant. The backline impenetrable. I mean, Kepa's in goal, but he had absolutely nothing to do. The front line, I think Gabriel Jesus had a marvellous game in his approach play, his hold-up play, his link-up with his teammates. It was arguably the best first-half performance I've seen from Arsenal all season. Barring clinical edge. I'm not going to ignore it because it's a fundamentally important part of football. And you may not worry, you might be a rival. Gooners were definitely worrying. And I'm not going to lie, I did want to see a Chelsea-Arsenal semi-final. I really want to see it. No disrespect to Palace. I've got family that are Palace. But I wanted to see that game. And you start to sit there and think, could this be nicked by Palace? Are Arsenal going to yield to their nerve again and almost find a way of not going through? Second half begins, and Palace did start the first 15 minutes strong. But let's be honest, he only led to 4 shots. None were on target. They weren't able to sustain it. Barely any XG, which shows you they were low-value chances at best. And I don't know if this is frustrating or if I find it funny as an outsider. Scoring from a set piece after all the brilliance from open play. Lacroix, who is, I think, been fantastic signing. Not only did he score an own goal, he actually missed the fateful penalty. But Arsenal get a goal from a set piece. It's an own goal. And I'm sort of laughing because I've heard Jamie Carragher recently talk a lot of nonsense and say things like, oh, it's not finishers they need. They don't need their players to be clinical. They need to create more chances. I don't think that's the case with Arsenal. Especially not tonight anyway. It was putting the ball across the line. But when they got that goal, I sort of sniggered and laughed to myself a little bit and thought, well, they'll go through now. And by the way, up until the 95th minute, again, it was comfortable. It was easy. Palace weren't really a threat. And then they get a set piece. And it's whipped in. And it's well won. Very, very, very well won in the air by Lerma. And Gahey finishes like a number 9. And by the way, Gahey tonight, by the way, I know they got opened up a lot, but when he could do something, he did fantastic tonight, not just because he scored a goal, but his overall performance. Why didn't he celebrate, by the way? I didn't understand why he didn't celebrate. Could somebody tell me that? Let me know in the... By the way, if you haven't liked the video yet, get liking, get subscribing, get the bell notification button turned on and hype this up as well, please. But then it went in, and I worried for Arsenal. I worried for Arsenal because there's been many a time where Arsenal have lost their nerve in those moments, collapsed in those moments. Could they concede a late... Well, could they concede a late Palace winner? No. They had a chance to score and Rice can't get it over the goalkeeper. I thought it was interesting that Gyökeres didn't come on. I know there's 5 minutes left. Brilliant penalty taker. And then it went to penalties. And as I said at the top, it brought back for me very happy memories of United Arsenal at the Emirates last season. But could they hold their nerve? Yes, they could. And I tweeted something at full time. And I want to read this tweet out to you. Not the end of the shootout, end of full time. Where I said Arsenal's lack of finishing right up until the last kick of the game could cost them here. By far the better side, but that's cup football. And the amount of responses I've seen, shambolic. This has been the problem for 5 years. This is why we don't win trophies. We won't hold our nerve. We've got a weak mentality. We're definitely going out. That was a lot of the responses. And that's Arsenal fans who are normally very well-mannered, respectful. They're not Arteta-outers or haters of the Football Terrace. As a typical rule, I know a lot of these names. I interact with them. Thought they're out. And I understand the PTSD that Arsenal fans go through. I get it. As someone who suffers with it in real life, outside of football, I get it. But Arsenal did very well in the penalty shootout. That's it. Point blank. Every penalty was perfect, cool, calm, collected. And look, Palace actually did very well also, up until Kepa made a save. And I think Kepa made a big decision in the game. I do think that he made... I don't know how many times he stayed in the middle or went to his left, our right on the TV screen. But he seemed to go to his right, our left on the TV screen nearly every time. And it ended up working out because I think in the end, the player's gone. I think a player's gone, look, at some point he's going to dive the other way. So I'm going to go to his left, and it was saved with not enough height on it. But Arsenal did very well to hold their nerve there. I think at that moment, from the Gahey goal until the final kick from Lacroix, Palace would have wanted to have gone through, but there was almost no pressure on them. And for me, it's this element of, can they keep their nerve? Can they get through this, Arsenal? And they did. And they deserve credit because if they didn't, you and me would be absolutely crucifying them. We would. And there's a comment here from Jonathan who says, would you put the lack of killer instinct on the coach or the players? For me, this is one of those answers that requires balance. If you're an Arteta outer, you're going to say, manager, straight up manager. If you then you find people that like sack Arteta, bringing a manager the Arteta outers love, and they'll blame it on the players having a bad mentality. If you've got an agenda, you'll go with one or the other. For me, it's a combination of the two. But I think this is something that they did keep their nerve in that penalty shootout. So the players missed big chances in the game. Some will blame the manager. But then they held their nerve brilliantly in the penalty shootout. What, are you going to put that on the players, or are you going to say it's on the manager? I think it's a combination of the two. I think fans play an equally as important part. Can you keep your nerve? Can you stay composed? Can you stay supportive, or do you become nervous? Do you add to the negative atmosphere? As an England fan, we've actually had some decent success in penalty shootouts in recent years. I know we lost a final, but we have won a couple of penalty shootouts, which in my lifetime I never witnessed. And every time we got into one, you could hear it in the crowd. It's, oh, we're done. We're done. So I think it's a combination of everybody. It's the manager working on drills and certain training techniques to get people ready. sometimes it's about recruiting players that can handle that pressure and can get through the adversity. And another element of it is on the fans. I think the fans do play an important part. We like to say as football fans, don't we? We're the most important part of football until it comes to us having a responsibility for us maintaining bad owners because we still give the club money or whatever it may be. So I think we play a part in it. There we go. But yeah, I wouldn't put it down to any one individual, to be honest with you. When it comes to missing chances in open play, you've heard me say this about my own team, so I'm going to be consistent here. I put that more on players. I put it more on players than I do managers. Managers' jobs are to create a system that gets the ball to the edge of the box and a system that's hard to break down for opponents. Arsenal did that perfectly tonight. You know, he also didn't sit down like Ten Hag with his head in his lap. And I was told that as long as the manager can stand at the front with his players and look supportive, it ain't on him. So again, I'm going to keep the same energy, right? People will pick and choose their energy depending upon their agenda. But a really good question. But they held their nerve well tonight. They really, really did. But as ever, look, I want to get your views and opinions on this. A big semi-final now for Arsenal up against Chelsea. That takes place in January. A few weeks between the games. Can't wait for that. That's going to be epic. It's going to be absolutely epic on every single level because, you know, Chelsea, I mean, listen, Arsenal had the hardest tie of all the teams in the quarterfinals. But, you know, Newcastle scraping through with a last-minute goal. 2 late goals to Chelsea against Cardiff. A penalty shootout win for Arsenal. The most convincing win was Man City at home to Brentford. But I think it makes the semi-finals amazing. 1 home, 1 away. Cannot wait. Please like, share, and subscribe, please, people.